Yes, we're filming.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, future people. This is Greg Singer and my grandmother,
Barbara Singer.
also known as Oma.
Oma.
And it's October 12th, 2013. We're going to be doing an interview today. So, first question. Tell us about your early life.
Okay. I was born at the Beth Israel Hospital in Newark, New Jersey. It was a brand new hospital in those days. And the first address I had was on South Orange Avenue above my father's store. My father had a store called
And what was your father's name?
Harry Minowitz, and we changed it to Harry Martin. When the war was over and my older brother came home from service, he wanted to call himself Martin instead of Minowitz. So my father said, the whole family's going to change their names. Now, I was already a junior in high school, but we changed it to Martin. So I went from Barbara Minowitz to Barbara Martin. And it was the whole family. It was my two brothers, my mother and father, and me. We all became Martin. And I lived above the store there till I was in kindergarten. I did kindergarten at 14th Avenue Grammar School. And then my father bought a house on Lehigh Avenue. It was a two-family house. And the store was still on 265 South Orange Avenue, but we moved to Lehigh Avenue, 118 Lehigh Avenue.
118.
Yes. And my father was very much interested in buying real estate. So through the years, he bought a number of pieces of property and became like a landlord. And we had one on South Orange Avenue. We had one on 14th Street. We had a second house on Lehigh Avenue. It was number 131 Lehigh Avenue. And anyway, I started the first grade at Maple Avenue Grammar School. And I had to walk to school. For a 6-year-old, it was a very long way. I had to cross the main street, which was Lyons Avenue. And there was always a policeman, a regular policeman, that took us across because that was such a busy street like Manatee Avenue. And
did you go by yourself or did you go with friends?
I think I went by myself. And there was a girl next door that I was friendly with, but mostly I went by myself. The library was on the way to school, so that was very nice. I always enjoyed going to the library, and I still enjoy going to the library. So anyway, Mr. Heller we didn't eat lunch in school. So I had to come home, and it was, I was little until I got home, until I got back to school again after lunch. He would always say to me, hurry up, you're going to be late, because it was a long walk for a little girl.
About how long did it take?
Oh, I'm sure it was a good 15 minutes.
So you had to do that 4 times a day?
Yeah. And I had a cousin that was in my class in grammar school, too. She lived on the next block. Her name was Razel Sable.
Now, was she your father's?
She was my mother's brother's grandchild.
So tell us about your mom.
My mom was one that encouraged me no end. She worked with my father many years in the store. We not only had dry cleaning, we had tuxedos. And my mother worked with my father a lot. But then when we moved to Lehigh Avenue, she didn't want to make that commute because she didn't drive. So my father was not well. He had a heart condition. And he died when I was 18.
So was he born in the United States?
No, my mother and father were not born in the United States. They both came from outside of Warsaw, Poland.
And when did they come?
My mother must have been a baby, a year or two old. But my father, being the oldest of 9 children, came with his father about maybe 1912. And they brought the rest of the family over. My father was working from the time he was 12 years old because it's a big family, and his father didn't make very much money. So
now, did you meet your grandfather?
I met my grandparents, yes. They didn't speak English very well, but I did meet them, and I remember them giving me money when I was a little girl.
So they spoke Polish mostly?
Yiddish.
Yiddish. Okay.
And they lived in New York. Most of the family lived in New York. But when my father met my mother, he moved to New Jersey because the family was very upset when he got married because they lost the breadwinner.
Do you know?
They originally came through Ellis Island?
Yeah. And in
that's why
fact,
they
through
stayed in
the
New York?
genealogy, you can even look that up. There's a lady who still sends me this genealogy magazine. It's called the Minowitz Minutes. And there are a lot of families called Minowitz, but they're not all descended from my grandparents. They have a whole listing. I can show you one of the Minowitz Minutes, and you can see there are lots of different offshoots. And this lady was very nice that she made this genealogy through the years. And now we have it on television, on the computer. And you can see it all. And it's my cousin's grandson, Matthew, who made the genealogy thing. And that's really good.
Yeah. Do you know how your parents met?
I think at a dance.
At a dance? At a school dance?
What?
At a school dance?
No, they didn't have very much education, so my mother was already working in New York, and my father was working, and I guess they went to a dance, and that's how they met.
So is it...
A lot of the family were involved with the garment workers in New York City. An aunt and an uncle both were working there.
So when people immigrated from Poland or...
They came to New York City.
Right, so was it kind of a close-knit community? The Polish people kind of stayed with the Polish people, and that's maybe how they met?
Polish people, we call them landsmen.
Landsmen, why are they called that?
That's people who come from a certain area.
Okay.
And I don't think my father went further than the 8th grade. Maybe my mother went a little further than that. He used to read the Jewish Forward. There was a newspaper in New York. I don't know if it still exists, but he could read Hebrew.
So were your parents religious?
Not at all. My mother was more religious than my father. We never belonged to a temple because my father didn't believe in it. But my mother did keep kosher, and my brothers were bar mitzvahs.
Okay.
And since we didn't belong to a temple, my parents hired somebody to teach my brothers their haftorah, which is what you do for your bar mitzvah. And as I said, none of the family were very religious.
Are you the youngest of your siblings?
Yes. I had a brother who was 9 years older than me. And my other brother was 6 years older than me.
And what were their names?
Then my brother was called Seymour all the years he was growing up, but his real name was Samuel. And when he went into service, he became Sam, because Samuel Martin was then. But I guess Ben's name was Benjamin. But I had an Uncle Benjamin, too. That was a very popular name.
Sure.
My mother had three siblings. No, two siblings. She had a sister and a brother. My Uncle Jack lived locally. And the sister died in childbirth, and her husband remarried. So I have second cousins from the Cronenberg side of the family. But my mother's maiden name was Fried, F-R-I-E-D. And the Singer family, they came from Elizabeth, and that's where the Singer Manufacturing Company, and that's why we all became singers. Because Bill told me when he was going to school there was a dozen singers in the class, because when they came over, they couldn't pronounce those long names, so they shortened them to Singer, and that's why you see so many singers today.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went to Maple Avenue Grammar School, and it was a lovely school. The whole neighborhood was pretty much Jewish where I grew up. You know, that's what they call the Weequahic section of Newark.
The what now?
Weequahic. That's the name of the high school.
Okay.
It was Weequahic High School. It's still in existence.
Really?
In fact, I get a newsletter from the alumni from Weequahic High School. And, you know, they list what years they graduated. I graduated in 46. My brother graduated, I think, in 43. No, it must have been earlier than that. No, he couldn't have graduated in 43. Must have been 30-something.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was 9 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe...
35.
Yeah.
So I have a cousin who's still alive, and he graduated the same time as my brother. In fact, I contacted him through the email, but he's way up in his 90s now. And they lived in New Jersey. They lived in Springfield. And they had 2 daughters.
So after grammar school...
I went to Weequahic High School, but since it was during the war, they had a separate, they had the high school 3 years, and they had a 1 year that was, I guess it was called an annex to the high school. The freshman year, all the kids went to that school.
So you were in high school during World War II?
Yes. I graduated in 46.
Okay. So it started in 39 when you were in middle school?
Yeah. Well, we didn't have middle school. We just had
Right.
8 grades in Maple Avenue Grammar School.
Okay.
And then we went to the 1 year, freshman year, and then to the senior high school.
So what was it like going to high school during the war?
Well, it was fine. The only thing is we didn't have dances and stuff because of the war. And everybody had, well, my parents anyway did. We had these flags in the window that had 2 stars which showed that her 2 sons were in service.
Okay.
And I remember when I graduated grammar school in 43, my mother was in the audience and she was crying because that was the day her younger son went into the service. And so, yeah, and both my parents were like air raid wardens. They wore armbands and, you know, they would have a blackout.
Now, did your brothers volunteer or were they drafted?
That's a good question. I guess they were drafted because my older brother wanted to finish college, so he had a deferment to finish college. And he went to a college called Panzer, which was strictly for gym teachers and health teachers. And so that stood him in good stead in the Army because he helped train a lot of troops, because that was his thing, what he did in college. And as I said, I idolized my older brother. He was 9 years older than me, and it was like almost like a father thing. I used to write to him during the war, and he got such a kick out of my teenage letters talking about all the boys.
Do you still have any of the letters? No?
No, sorry about that.
That's all right.
There were some letters that Bill wrote home to his mother, and he would sign it, "Your loving son, Willie." Because when he was a kid, that's what they called him, Willie. But my younger brother wasn't a very good student, so he never went to college. But my older brother did. And to me, it was very important that I go to college, because my mother said, you never know that you're going to have to work for a living, and if you have a college education, you can get a decent job. So she didn't want me to be a nurse, so I went for medical technology, which I like very much. I like working in the lab.
Well, nowadays a nurse is a pretty decent job.
I know, but in those days, all my mother could think about were the bedpans that I would have to carry, and she didn't want me to do that.
So do you remember Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
So do you remember where you were?
No.
No?
In 41, I was a kid.
So,
But at 13, I was working. My next door neighbor owned a bakery on the main street, on Bergen Street, and I earned 25 cents an hour working in the bakery. I did it summers and on Sundays when people would come in for their rolls and cake and stuff. It was a really nice job. But every time I wanted a raise, I had to quit. They gave me another nickel raise. I think I got up to about 50 cents an hour. And I liked that much better than babysitting. I never liked babysitting. And I'm just amazed that I ended up with so many children.
So when did you meet Papa?
I was in college. I guess it was 1948. It was my second year in college. And one of the girls asked me if I wanted to go on a blind date. And I said, sure.
This was at NYU?
No, Uppsala. This was the first college that I went to. It's in East Orange. It doesn't exist anymore, but in those days it was a liberal arts college. And
you know, there's an Uppsala Sweden.
They were the sister college.
Okay.
And I did have to take religion one hour a week, which was never able to transfer anywhere. It was only in the school. But I started Uppsala at a good time because all the guys were coming out of service. And so the colleges were filled with the GIs. And I had a ball. I mean, college was really wonderful. I mean, I always had boyfriends, even when I was a teenager. I used to go with this one kid who lived in the next block, and we met at the movies. The movies was around the corner. It was the park movies, and everybody went to the movies. I even went with my mother sometimes, and you'd get a dish. We went at night, and they would give out a dish. But anyway, that's how I met this Richard Denning, who lived on the next block. And I went with him for a long time. He was already in college, so he was a couple of years older than me. And I went to fraternity parties and stuff. And he used to walk me home from the bakery. When I worked in the summer, we closed the bakery at 9 o'clock, and then we would go for walks. That's what teenagers do. They go for walks. There was a wonderful place, a hot dog place called Savings that was on Beaker Avenue, and that was a real hangout. All the kids always went. Whoever had a car could drive to this place for hot dogs. Across the street from the bakery that I worked at was the Henry Sweet Shop. That was a real hangout too. They had the best ice cream. They still have this Grunning's ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
There's a coffee chip ice cream that is so delicious. And it's still in existence.
The same ice cream shop or the brand?
Well, they moved the shop.
Okay.
They have it now in South Orange on the hill. And it's more like a diner.
So you met Papa in college.
Yeah, and I met my friend Bob Jordan too.
Okay.
Bill had a lot of friends, and he didn't have a car, so whenever we would date, would be with somebody like Bob Jordan who had a car.
Mm-hmm. So did he also go to Uppsala, or was he just in the area?
No, when I met Bill, he was going to Rutgers in New Brunswick.
Mm.
So even though I was going to Uppsala, he was going to Rutgers.
So they were nearby?
No, Rutgers is quite a distance.
Okay.
It's like from here to Tampa.
So that's why he would need Bob Jordan?
Or any other
Right,
friend
or any
that
other
would.
friend.
We took the bus a lot. Sometimes we went into New York City because we loved to go to foreign films. So we would go to the place that's on Central Park. There's an art film there. I think it's called the Paris Theater. And I still like going to foreign films. And sometimes we would go to the movies downtown and we would take the bus down to Newark and eat in an ice cream parlor. There was Howard Johnson's and Bond's. And there was a half a dozen movie theaters in downtown Newark. I mean, that was a big thing.
So how old was Papa when you met him?
3 years older
3
than
older.
me, so he was 21.
Okay.
And he was on the GI Bill.
Right.
He had only been in the Army 2 years, and he took advantage of everything that the VA offered him.
What did you think of him when you first met him?
I fell in love with him almost immediately.
What was it about him that made you fall in love with
He
him?
was very handsome. I have a picture of our honeymoon. I can show it. I turn this on. This is Atlantic City on our honeymoon.
On the
I was
boardwalk?
21 and he was 24. That was the beginning of our honeymoon. He had a full head of hair then.
Yeah. So what do you know of Papa's childhood?
Not nearly as safe as mine. During the Depression, his father went bankrupt. They were living in a cold water flat. Because,
What's that?
a cold water flat?
Yeah, what is that? Like a little house?
They didn't have any hot water, and they could have a tank there. And they were struggling. His father and mother,
Now, he lived in New York?
no, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth? Okay.
I think he was born and raised in Elizabeth. And they were living like above a store. And they were struggling.
Do you know why they moved out of New York?
They were never in New York.
Oh, they were never in New York.
No.
So
Bill
how
was
did...
born and raised in Elizabeth.
Right. So when did...
You're getting confused with my parents.
Right.
My parents met in New York City and came to Newark.
Okay.
But Bill's parents were always in Elizabeth. They must have come in through Elizabethport instead of Ellis Island. They
Okay.
came through Elizabethport. And there's quite a story with Grandma, that's Bill's mother. She was only 18 years old with the First World War. And when she was coming, she was not coming, she was going to bring some money to some relatives to come to Newark. And the war broke out, and she couldn't get back home. So she took the tickets and went to United States and stayed with her uncle,
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Galler. And that's how she met. They're sort of related, Grandpa and Grandma, through the Geller family.
Right.
Her name was Freed, but she stayed with the Gellers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still close to Cousin Faye, who's a Geller.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I told you, but I don't know if you're taking all this in.
Yeah, I think so. It's still recording, right?
Yeah.
For like 3 minutes.
One of the Geller family is Zevin.
Mm-hmm.
He just won a Pulitzer Prize, what they call a Thurber Award.
Mm-hmm.
You heard of James Thurber?
Yeah.
He does like comedies.
Mm-hmm.
And this Dan Zevin, who's probably in his 30s, he's been writing these little soft cover books, but he wrote one hardcover book, and I just read it. It's called Dan Gets a Minivan, and it's really cute. He's a father in Brooklyn, taking care. He's a house father. In other words, his wife goes out to work, and he stays home and writes,
Right.
and he takes care of the kids. So he used to go into the park with the women, with the children. And he wrote a number of little stories, but this one won a Thurber Award.
Mm-hmm.
It's his first hardcover book, Dan Zevin.
Very nice.
Yeah, we have some pretty smart people in the family.
So when did Grandpa Max come to Elizabeth?
I have a picture of him. Where is that picture? I'll have to go look for it. I have a number of them. What the family came over, and it was him and his brother. Max had a brother. Can't think of his brother's name right now. But they were in business together. They had a pants business on Elizabeth Avenue. And his father had an Army-Navy store on 2nd Street in Elizabeth. So he must have been maybe he was about 12 also. He about finished with
1 minute.
He was about 12 when he came. But he met Grandma through the Gellers. And she encouraged him to start a business. And Grandpa has a brother, Herbie.
Right.
You met Herbie. And Bill was always taking care of his brother. That was his job.
And now where is Herb now, Herbie?
Now he lives up in Vermont with one of his daughters. He had been living in Panama City with his wife, but she has since passed away, and they just felt it was better if Herb was where his daughter is. So I think he has an apartment above the garage at her place in Vermont.
That's nice.
Okay, we're back for round 2.
Okay.
Okay, so we left off talking about...
My brother Ben in California.
Right.
We were all planning to move there. My father had bought quite a bit of real estate in California with the idea that we would live there. And he had retired from the tuxedo business because my younger brother took it over. And it just never happened because he died. I was already out in California going to school when I was 18.
Yeah, you went to UCLA?
Yeah, when I busted up with your father, grandfather, I went to California, and it was a big, exciting thing. I mean, at 18 years old, I got on this train, El Capitan, and it took a week to go from Newark out to LA on the train. I had such a ball.
Now, did you take baggage, or did you just go clothes on your back?
No,
Okay.
I had luggage, and I had a brother out there. My brother Ben already had 2 kids and was in L.A., and I stayed at UCLA for the summer in their dorm. And they didn't really have it was a dorm. I had a roommate, and that was very nice. And then my father didn't want to have to pay for me with room and board, so I got a job working for this lady in Beverly Hills. I had her maid's room, and I was like a babysitter, so that she wasn't alone. Michael Hertz was her name, and she had a teenage daughter who ate nothing but peanut butter sandwiches. But anyway, Michael just wanted somebody in the house with us, so it worked out really good. I could take a bus from her house in Beverly Hills to UCLA because I didn't have a car. And I went to summer school. I had already transferred in.
So you were studying to be a medical technologist at UCLA?
Yeah.
Now, was that your major?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And
I
what?
was there over the summer till December, and that's when my father died, and I had to come home. But I'd already made a boyfriend at UCLA. Well, she was so nice to me. That night we were going to have a dance, and so Michael was making a cocktail party for me and my friends before we went to the dance. But I got a phone call to say my father died. I had to leave. So we never did. And it turned out it was one of my brother's friends that was invited to that cocktail party. We found out later.
Oh.
But anyway, I never went back to UCLA. And I lost all the credits from that fall because I couldn't take the final exam. I had to be in California to take it. They wouldn't let me do it at NYU. So I lost those credits. But I switched, this was December, and I started the February class at NYU. I started commuting. It was an easy commute from Newark to NYU. There was just this number, I think it's 626, is the number of the bus, a Somerset bus that went into New York City. There was no Port Authority in those days, so I got off the bus on 7th Avenue down in the Village and walked into NYU. And that's how I commuted back and forth. So I never lived in NYU. I lived home. I went home every day.
This was with your mom?
Yeah. My brother was still living. We had a 2-family house. My brother was living in one upstairs, and I was living with my mother upstairs.
This is your youngest older brother?
Yeah.
Okay. And he was married.
He got married, and
So your eldest brother was in California, and
yeah.
your elder brother was in Newark still.
The younger brother was,
right.
Sam was in Newark, yeah. But he wasn't making much of a living on South Orange Avenue. So Ben opened a second store in California in the tuxedo business, and he really could use Sam. So Sam went out there with his family. He had a little girl at that point.
So where are your nieces and nephews now?
Let's see. His son Gary lives in Northridge, California. Mary Ann lives in the Valley in California. Her brother lives in West LA, and another brother lives, I think, in San Diego. So they're all out there. But they were born out there.
Right.
Ben went there with his bride, but had the family there. And I took my kids a couple of times. We made a few trips out to California to be with the relatives. And we have one video that's really terrific. It shows a lemon fight that we had in his backyard. The kids did. I didn't. But the 4 kids, and we have some videos of us going to California.
Now, did you drive there?
No,
or
we flew.
You flew? Okay.
How did Papa ask you to marry him?
But his friend bought a house in Hillside and was having a housewarming. And so we went to the housewarming, and Bill said, I don't know how we said it, but we said, we're engaged. And I said, well, no, we're not engaged until I get a ring. So he got me a ring. But that's how we got engaged.
And then where
Is
did
that
you get
the ring?
married?
Well, we redid the ring.
You redid the ring.
Yeah.
So does
The
it...
stone, this is the original
The
stone.
original stone?
Yeah, but we reset the whole thing.
Cool.
And when did you get married, Oma?
Got married in 1950,
1950.
October 11th, so it was yesterday. That's our anniversary.
Great.
And when we got married, Bill's aunt, who had a store in Elizabeth, that's another whole story about his aunt and uncle. He was very close to them. You know, my husband was just such a good man. When she couldn't have a baby, finally, she had had a number of miscarriages. She finally adopted a child, and it was my husband who went to get that child to bring to her,
To her?
to Tilly, to Aunt Tilly and Abe. And Uncle Abe could never make a living. He had mental issues. So she opened up a ladies' dress shop on Elizabeth Avenue, and she did very well. And I had a lot of clothes from her store. You know, when we first started out, we didn't have very much money, so, you know, Tilly would give me the clothes at cost. So I always had a pretty nice wardrobe.
So what happened to Aunt Tilly's son or daughter?
Miriam, she's still alive. She's very religious.
Very Jewish religious?
Very Jewish religious. She married this guy, Ira, who became an orthodontist. And they live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida now. And they had 3 children. And they were all married. Now she has grandchildren. She probably has great-grandchildren at this point. We were not too close with them because they were too religious. I mean, they would never come and eat with us because they're super kosher.
Right.
I see. And did you have a Jewish wedding, Oma?
I got married in the rabbi's study. I was supposed to have a big wedding, but my mother died
Around that
the
time?
wedding. So we got married in the rabbi's study.
So your mom died around 1950 then?
Yeah,
Like a month?
right.
Oh, it's tough.
Yeah.
So you ended up having a smaller Jewish wedding?
Well, we got married in the rabbi's study. It was a Jewish wedding. But we lost the deposit on the catering place.
Yeah.
So after your wedding,
After the wedding, Aunt Tilly gave Bill $1,500 to buy a Studebaker, a car.
right?
We love that car. So that was our honeymoon. We went to Atlantic City. In fact, my younger brother and his wife showed up on the boardwalk in Atlantic City.
Unexpectedly?
Oh, I guess he wanted to keep an eye on his kid sister. But they didn't stay in the same place. We stayed at the Ambassador Hotel. And then we went to Washington, and then we went cross country. So we had a 6-week honeymoon. We ended up going to Grand Canyon and Las Vegas. And by the time we got to California, we didn't have any more money, so we got a job. So I lived in West LA, but I worked in East LA, so it was a long commute because I worked at the hospital. And Bill got a job downtown in May Company, because that's what he was, a business major. So he got to work very early because I had to be at work at 7 in the morning. So he ended up being there at 6:30, and the store didn't open till 9. So a lot of times he took a nap in the store till the store opened. But
So what did they do? What was their line of business?
well, May Company is a department store,
Okay.
and he worked in the men's section
Okay.
with all kinds of haberdashery and stuff. He had to be very dressed up with a hat and a suit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in those days, in 1950. You know. But I didn't. I wore a uniform because I was a lab technician.
Did you wear the white lab coat?
Yeah, and I took blood from the patients because I was doing cholesterol testing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my job.
How long did you live in LA?
Just a year.
Just a year?
Yeah.
And then did you move back to New York?
I was already pregnant.
Oh, so at that time you were pregnant.
Yeah,
And
I got pregnant in 51.
51?
Oh, wait a minute. I was there at least a year.
Okay. And then you moved to Elizabeth?
No, my parents owned this house on Lehigh Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother was living in part of it, and we had a tenant downstairs. But when Bill and I came back, I stayed with his parents, like you two were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 5 months pregnant, and we had to wait till the tenant moved out.
Oh, I see.
So when the tenant moved out, I was able to move into the downstairs apartment. And that's where the twins were born. Actually, they were born in the hospital.
Were you expecting twins?
I didn't know till 6 weeks before.
How did they determine
All
that?
I knew that was that I was pregnant at the same time as my girlfriend, and she was half the size I was. I was sticking out. When I was 6 weeks, just before 6 weeks before, the doctor felt that there was more than one there.
So they didn't have the ultrasound machine
No.
then? Not yet? Not the picture like we
No.
get nowadays?
No.
Oh, so he felt there were two, like he could hear
Yeah.
them? He heard the heartbeats? One
Right.
here, one here.
Right, so then we went out and got double of everything. 2 cribs, 2 strollers, 2 high chairs, 2 everything. They had a wonderful room. The room was huge.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the bris until they were a month old because the doctor wanted to make sure that they were strong enough to do that. Mm-hmm. So we did have a bris in the house. My mother-in-law had it catered, and we had what they call a moil. They came in and did the circumcision.
So what is a moil?
baby
A
circumcision.
moil is a rabbi who does the circumcision.
So he's like a rabbi doctor.
Yeah.
Rabbi / doctor.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Hopefully qualified as a doctor.
I hope so. It turned out all right.
I see.
Bill's parents were more religious. They belonged to a temple and the whole bit.
So when you married Papa, did you start going to a temple that Bill's parents go to? No? You just lived your
We
life?
never did.
That's good.
It wasn't our thing. I never kept kosher and all that stuff. The only mistake I made was she gave me a beautiful dinner set, and I used it for every day, and I wrecked it. Shouldn't have done that.
Was it like China? Like
Yeah.
porcelain China?
Noritake China was
Ooh.
really nice.
Yeah.
So how did you choose the names Mark and Robert?
I don't know. We just...
You just like them?
Yeah. I wanted plain names. Because you know I had a baby after Mark and Robert. I had Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
We never discussed him, but he was 10 months old, and he got meningitis, and he died within a day.
I see. He did die in the hospital?
I was bathing him, and he had a convulsion. And I called my
Doctor.
and he said, take him to the hospital. He had 107 temperature, and he died. It would have been a terrible thing if he survived the meningitis, because he would have been blind and deaf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would have been terrible. He was a beautiful baby, and I even took him to California. We had one trip that we went out there, and Stephen, my brother did see Stephen. But then I got pregnant right after that and had Ricky.
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Ricky?
So how long after my dad and Robert was Stephen born?
They were almost 4.
Okay, they were almost 4.
And then Uncle Ricky, like 6?
We were, the twins were about 2.5 when I finally moved to Union to Battle Hill Terrace. And it was a 6-room house, 3 bedrooms, and a living room, dining room, and kitchen on the first floor. And the twins were 2.5. And they had their little cart that they could go up and down the street. I didn't let them cross the street, but they could go up and down.
What type of cart was this? It was like a wagon?
It was like a little fire engine.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of these things that you could buy through the toy store. And we had a nice backyard. And then my brother came to visit us, and he bought us a swing set.
This is your younger brother?
No, my older
Your
brother.
older.
He came with his family one year. He had 3 children. Alan was about a teenager at that point, and the youngest was about 5, and he had a daughter about 13, I guess. So it was 13, 15, and the 5-year-old. And they came to visit us, and he bought us a swing set. We had a jungle gym in the backyard. It had a swing that goes back and forth, and you could sit on the 2 swings, and a slide. We had it for years till it fell apart.
Did you have any pets back then, dogs or cats?
We had a dog. There was a cousin of Bill's who was in Alaska with the Army, and he came back with 2 Alaskan Malamutes. And
what do those look like?
they were great big dogs. Oh, they were beautiful. Well, we took the younger one, and we had a dog house in the backyard, and the name of the dog was Shoshana, and the kids loved her. They could ride her. That's
Really?
how big she was, and they were all of like 3 and a half, and so they sat on the dog. They did anything they wanted. Shoshana just adored the children, and the dog would let them do whatever they wanted with them. But we had trouble with the dog because the dog didn't want to stay in the backyard if he heard that the kids were upstairs. Mm-hmm. So he'd start barking, so we would take him in. And it was really funny to see this dog in the house because, we had a flight of stairs to go to the 2nd floor. So when the dog went up, that was okay. But when he came down, he ended up hitting the piano. I mean, he was a big dog. But we had him for a few months, and my neighbors were complaining terribly about the dog because the dog barked every time. And then when the kids went up and down the street, the dog wanted to follow them. Mm-hmm. And he'd break the chain and jump the fence and follow them down the street. Well, that's fine, except Kathy, who lived next door, who was Patty's age, she was scared to death of him.
So you ended up having to
We
find
gave him to our bond bread man. We used to have a guy who delivered bread to us. And so he had a place on a farm where he could keep the dog.
When did that go out of style? Delivering of bread.
Gee, I have no idea. We used to have a milkman. We had a milkman every other day bringing us milk. And I'd get sour cream from him. That's about all we get. Or cottage cheese. We get cottage
Dairy
cheese.
products.
Yeah. Yeah. And once every 6 months he'd give us a bill that we would pay the milkman. He actually was Jewish and he was in our temple, so, you know, there was never any problem with that. So, anyway, we stopped with that. So the dog didn't last for more than 6-8 months because I didn't want to have my neighbor in the next block call on me because the dog was barking.
Right.
I mean, he really belonged on a farm. You know, to keep a dog in the city is hard.
Yeah, particularly ones that need a lot of exercise.
Yeah. Well, I did take him to obedience school, but he was just too big. Yeah. So it was a shame, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
So the twins went to nursery school. I think we would go 2 days a week. This woman had a station wagon, and she picked the kids up, and they spent a half a day in nursery school.
Did you work at this time?
No.
Not at this time. Did Papa work?
Oh, he had a business.
He had the tuxedo business then?
Yeah, he worked with his father. The store was on 1127 Elizabeth Avenue. And it was basically a men's haberdashery, but it wasn't enough for the family to make a living that way. So Bill took in tuxedos, and he knew what to do about tuxedos because he had worked with my brother out in California. He had helped him out a couple of times, and Ben gave him the places to call in New York. And then we started having the tuxedos in the store. And it took off right away. Obviously, there was a need for tuxedos. And so the business built up so much that we ended up taking the second floor in the building. We used to have tenants up there. We used it for the merchandise because we had so many tuxedos that, you know, we had a conveyor system in the store that went upstairs so that we could put all the tuxedos together upstairs and then bring them down on the conveyor system. I guess like the dry cleaning stores do today.
I see.
And all the kids worked for us. We had Mitch's brother worked for us. The kids next door worked for us. Some of Mark's friends worked for us. Bill was very good. He knew how to talk to the principal of the school, and there were some kids that needed some discipline and were a little bit of trouble, and Bill had them help us in the store. And a couple of them turned out pretty good. They ended up going on to college and doing very well.
Great.
So we only had one time that we ran into trouble because I was doing the books for the store.
Okay.
And we kept extra money in the desk. And the boy who was working for us, his mother owned the beauty parlor next door. And he was stealing he knew where that money box was, and he was stealing. So Bill let him go. He didn't
report him to police?
No, didn't even tell his mother. But, you know, he confronted him and said, "You have to go." And another time we had some kids who were on dope, and Bill said, "I can't have it." So he let them go. but he was usually pretty good with the kids, and they were having a good time because they would work upstairs and they'd be playing around. My father-in-law thought it was terrible.
Yeah.
But
So, then the twins were in elementary school when Uncle Ricky was born?
I think Ricky's 56 and Mark is 61, so there's 5 years difference.
So they're about to go into
Yeah, because I remember when the twins were 4, I had another son before Ricky. I had Stephen.
Stephen.
He was 10 months old, and he got meningitis, and he died in one day. The twins were 4 years old, and everybody was tested to make sure that they didn't have it. But I really think that Stephen dying at 10 months, they used to give the kids shots, and I think somehow or other
He had a reaction.
He had a reaction, and he got meningitis, and he had convulsions, and I took him to the hospital, and he died in the same day. His temperature went up to 107, and the doctor said that had he survived, he would have been blind and deaf, and he would have been a vegetable.
Yeah,
So
that would have been hard.
it was a blessing.
Where was Stephen buried?
He's in the same family plot where Bill is and where Bobby is. We have a plot in New Jersey in Mount Lebanon. But I got pregnant right after that and had Ricky the next. He died, in May or June, and by the next January I had Ricky. So I got pregnant immediately because that was the only way I could handle losing the child.
Yeah.
So, but we had taken Stephen to California.
So
It was one of our trips that we went to visit my brother. And,
So what was the dynamic like with the twins being 5 years old and Ricky just being born, and then Patty coming on shortly after?
well,
How did they interact?
the twins were already on their own. They were 5 years old and busy with their life, and they didn't have much to do with the baby. And Patty came along, what was it? Is it 2 years difference between them? 23 months, something like that. They were already busy with playing ball and with their friends. We had a wonderful street. It was 1 block long, Battle Hill Terrace. And you could play in the street, and they always had a ball game going. And they all had bicycles. Bill was very good. We had very good rapport with all of the merchants on Elizabeth Avenue. And so almost everything that we had in the house we got on Elizabeth Avenue, because we would go to the store for the toys and everything right at Culker's. And Ricky can still remember when he was working in the store, he'd go down the street, they had a luncheonette there, and that's where we would have our meals, like if we were working late at the store. Bill always had a meal there, and so it just was really convenient that Bill had such good rapport with all the merchants. There was a children's store that I bought all the children's clothes, and so it's. In fact, even Bill's aunt had a lady shop, and I used to get all my clothes from her because she'd give it to me at cost. So it was very convenient.
Sounds a lot different than it is now, where we have large retailers instead of a bunch of...
Well, there were just some department stores in Elizabeth. Not huge department stores, sort of like Bell's.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple, and there was a lady shop there. So, Elizabeth was a pretty thriving community.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any stories from when it snowed? When they were kids?
Lots of stories with snows. Sometimes you couldn't get off the street, and so it would be a free day that it was like a holiday because you couldn't go anywhere. And I know Patty would get lost if she was up on the thing. She'd fall in the thing, and we'd find her. And Bill had a chance to play with the kids. It was really nice.
So everything closed down?
Oh, yeah.
Did any of the kids ended up working at the store? At the tuxedo
They always
store?
worked in the store.
They always worked? From
Yeah.
young, like...
Well, they were teenagers.
Teenagers, yeah.
In fact, when Patty started working for us, we had a store in Woodbridge. We were expanding. We had not only the store on Elizabeth Avenue, but we had a store in Woodbridge, which had a dry cleaning plant. And that's where Patty would work because she'd work behind the counter to take in the clothes and talk on the phone. It was a wonderful experience for her because here she was 16 years old and, she was learning to deal with the customers and talk on the phone. And she never made any mistakes because she was always good in math. So she did that. Then when I opened the bridal part of the tuxedo store, then she helped me out with the brides.
And when
she
did you
was really
open?
good.
When did you open the bridal shop?
Oh, almost toward the end
Towards the end.
because business wasn't going so good, and so this was another way to have income.
That's right. So then, where did the kids go to school, to high school? 'Cause
Union High School right on Morris Avenue, not too far. They could walk.
so they all walk to school.
Yeah, but you know what? Bill used to drive them most of the time. That was his pleasure. He was going to work anyway, so he would take the kids to school.
Did they ever get in trouble at school?
Ricky did. Mark and Albert never got in trouble.
What did Uncle Ricky do?
One time, he was swinging in the rafters in the boys' room, and the principal walked in, and he said, "You're going to have your mother come to school." Well, you never saw a scared kid in your life when he had to go home and tell me that I had to go to school because he got caught in the men's rooms swinging from the rafters. So, I think his name was Mr. Murphy, the school principal. He made a big deal out of it, but it really wasn't anything. And then we had another Richard Singer in the school system, and he didn't live too far from us. He lived in the new Largemont. We were the original Largemont, but they had another housing development a couple blocks away that they called the new Largemont, and that's where Richard Singer lived. And he had a library card, and he had taken out books and owed a lot of money, and they thought it was my Ricky, and it wasn't. It was the other Richard Singer. That's how we figured out because he was in the same school, and but there was a lot of singers.
Yeah.
But actually, the twins never really got in trouble.
I've heard stories about them hiding under the bed and you going in there with the broom.
Oh, well, I used to scream at them, there was 4 against 1. Is that what Mark remembered?
Yeah, he remembers that.
He remembered when I was screaming and they would go hide. And I'd say, "I'm not the maid around here."
So they were messy kids?
All I know is I used to close the door to Patty's room. And I didn't know that she was taking pot or anything. I knew that Ricky was, because we had discussions a lot of times, and he kept saying, "There's nothing wrong with marijuana."
This was when he was in high school?
And when Mark had come home from Europe, when he was with Steve Benzel, he came home with this big bowl that you could smoke. Ricky broke it. It didn't last the day. Ricky broke it.
This was just before my dad went to law school?
Would this cause a fight between them?
No.
No.
He was just disgusted that he had treasured this thing and had broke it. No, I don't ever remember Mark fighting with Ricky. No. And Ricky, of course, idolized with Bobby. That was a really tough thing for him.
With Bobby? He was closer to Bobby or
Yeah.
Mark? Bobby.
Why was that?
Because of Bobby's personality.
How was Bobby? Was he calmer? Was he just more joyful?
He
How
was
was he
more
like?
of a people person.
He was a people person.
And his best friend was Craig, who lived down the street. Craig was the youngest of 4 children, and his parents were happy that that Greg was always at our house. His mother and father were working, and his older brother didn't want to have to take care of him, so Craig was always at our house. But poor Craig, he never got into any of the things that my kids did. And I felt bad for him, because we had Little League, we had the temple, we had camp, and Craig just never had any of it.
No.
I didn't realize in later years that Craig became a homosexual.
Oh.
But, we didn't know that at the time, and he was only a teenager. And he was very smart. He was the editor of the yearbook. I showed you the yearbook with the
that's
picture
true.
and everything. And he was Bobby's best friend. And Mark had other friends. I was a Cub Scout leader. And there again, Craig was not part of it because his parents didn't want to get involved. So he missed out on everything.
So
That's hard.
my dad and Bobby didn't travel in the same circles?
Well, sort of. I mean, how can you not?
Right.
But I would say they went to the same camp. They were both camp counselors together, at the same camp. And they went to Little League together. They both were very much into baseball, and that was always a big thing. And then at one point, Bill started this Beth Shalom Baseball League because Ricky didn't even know how to throw and catch. Even though we went to the Little League games, Ricky would play in the dirt. He had another little friend, and they would have their imaginary games. I mean, Ricky marched to a different drummer. He just did his own thing. I mean, that's the way he was. By the time he was 12, we gave him a camera, and that's when he got involved with that. But he was very involved with audio-visual, always in school, because he even went to the camera club in Union. He was the youngest one there. It was all adults, but he was part of it because he was so much interested in the camera and video and the whole bit. So Ricky made models when he was real little. He took all his G.I. Joes. So he used to play with G.I. Joes. Mm-hmm. And so he took them and he made them into monsters. He had a Frankenstein and he had a werewolf.
Did he melt them or something?
No, he made movies. He took frame by frame and he did this down the basement. He took over the laundry room, and that was his dark room, where he even did a wedding for one of my friends, and I was like scared. But the pictures were getting, but that's what he was interested in high school. Mm-hmm. And he's not the athlete. Ricky never was. He was one who was interested in audiovisually. He used to go to the football games and take pictures of the football games. And he was always with audiovisual. So by the time he was a junior in high school, we knew he wanted to go to film school. So instead of finishing his senior year in high school, he transferred to NYU and became a freshman in his senior year in high school. So he never went to his high school graduation because he was already in NYU. He was a little immature for being in NYU. He had a bit of a hard time because he was too young for what was happening with the freshmen. But he survived.
How about Aunt Patty? What was Aunt Patty? Where was she going at this time?
Well, she tried to be, she was always very athletic. So she was always with her brothers with the bike. I didn't have to teach her how to ride. With Ricky, we had to walk up and down the street till he learned how to ride his bike. But Patty just got on her bike and off she went. She followed her brothers all over the place. She was always very athletic, and she was good at swimming. She was good at tennis. When she went with Mitch, she learned to play golf in no time flat.
Where did they meet?
Ricky was Mitch's friend. So Mitch came to the house, and I've known Mitch since he was 8 years old because he was a friend of Ricky's. I was actually friends with his parents. His mother was painting with me, so I knew Doris from the time we were painting together. How we met, I really don't know, but I know we were painting together, and she went her separate ways. She went with this artist, and I went back to school. I went to Farley Dickinson and got a fine arts degree. But Doris decided instead of going to college, she would go with this artist. But so we were friends, and I used to follow Julia Child. Remember, I gave you the cookbook. So I used to make dinner parties, to cook like Julia Child. And Doris and Murray were part of our group of friends.
See.
So, and Mitch's older brother, Brent, worked for us as a teenager. Of course, he was not a very good worker. He'd hide out in the, where we had, I don't know what you call it, I guess, where we had the steam room or something, and Brent would get out of work if he could.
That was so you could iron the suits?
Yeah, we had the pressers and whatnot. But anyway, Bill started this baseball league through the temple on Sundays. This was before he was playing golf. The boys helped out. Mark and Bobby were helping with, and they'd have some of their friends help to teach these youngsters from the temple how to play baseball. So we did that on Sunday afternoon. I would bring my painting stuff, and I'd be painting, and Patty would be doing whatever she would want to do, and Ricky was learning how to play baseball till he got to a point where he was 12 years old and he wanted to get out to Little League. So by this Beth Shalom League, he learned enough to get on to the Little League. Because, you have to try out for Little League. And if you're not good enough, they're not going to take you. So.
Okay. I think we should cut for now. Okay.
Why don't we start off when the kids started going to college?
Like Mark going to college? He went to George Washington in Washington, D.C. And he was there for 2 years. And it was during the Vietnam War. And he had a very low number. And he said if he got drafted, he was going to go to Canada because no way was he going to go to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
But it never happened.
Now, he grew out his hair at this time.
Yeah, and there was that wonderful picture of him shaking his finger at this guy who was a Nazi. We have a picture of it somewhere. Mm-hmm. It was in the newspapers and all.
Yeah.
Because at that time, Washington got overrun by all the protesters, mm-hmm. and in particular George Washington University, because it was downtown Washington. And so there was a time when he was stuck in the building because there were so many protesters outside. He stayed for 2 days in the building, mm-hmm. because it was not a good time.
No. So
he was very friendly with Phil Matthews, and Phil was from California, mm-hmm. and they became really close friends. And Phil was going to become a lawyer. And Mark didn't know what he wanted to do. But we kind of talked to him about applying to law school, because what was he going to do with an economics degree? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's, it's a hard thing to find a job from that. Mm-hmm. So he didn't know whether he wanted to be a lawyer. But Phil was very much so that he wanted to do that. But anyway, he went with Mark Schoenberg after 2 years at GW down to Gainesville. So he finished his third and fourth year in Gainesville.
So what do you think about my dad moving to Florida from New Jersey?
Oh, I think it was fine. I mean, this was a tough time for him because, he had lost his brother, and he just felt that it was time to leave New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And Washington didn't work out, and he had a good friend, Mark Schoenberg, who was transferring to Gainesville, so Mark went too, and he liked Gainesville very much. So he spent 2 years in Gainesville. Mm-hmm. And at that point, he got my Dodge Charger. I hated that car, but Mark loved it. And he had it for, 10 years or so. Chris hated the car at the end because it was falling apart. And it sounded like an airplane when it went. It was a very noisy car, but he liked it. So, anyway, he went to Gainesville. We went down to the Citadel at one point, where Bill had gone to school, and then we went to Miami, and he saw Miami University. But he really liked Gainesville. I think it was the right move. I didn't like Washington, D.C. because there was no campus. It was a city school, the way NYU is.
Right.
It's just buildings. And at least in Gainesville, it's a campus, and you can have fun there. Mm-hmm. The whole town is part of the school.
Right.
So it's really a great place to go to school. So when he anyway, Ricky by that time was in his junior year in high school, and instead of finishing his senior year in high school, he got early acceptance to NYU because he wanted to work with film. So that's what he did. He went to NYU, but he was partly living down in the village and partly coming home because it was so close. It was only an hour away. And he was kind of immature for going to college, but he survived it because most of the kids were older and he wasn't mature enough as far as social life is concerned. But he certainly liked the filming.
So at what point did you and Papa decide to move to Florida?
Well, our business wasn't doing too well. It was time to leave. We had been in it for 25 years, and we had expanded to the point where we had a half a dozen places. We had Woodbridge, we had Madison, and we had a number of other subsidiaries. And then things got tough. We had bought this place in Woodbridge, which was a tuxedo store, but also a dry cleaner. In fact, when Patty was 16, she was working there. She really learned how to answer the phone and talk to people because she would take the dry cleaning in and all. She was really good at that. All our kids worked for us.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky did the worst.
Why is that?
Because he's not really a people person, as you know. So, but he got himself jobs, like when he was a teenager, he was doing all the snow shoveling for everybody in the neighborhood. So he had himself a little business. And at one point, he was working for a liquor store, and he had a bunch of beer in the garage, and I found it all. He wasn't supposed to be drinking beer, but, you know, he did things like that.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, he went to, and when Patty graduated, she decided she wanted to be a pharmacist, and she got accepted at URI, and it's Rhode Island University, and that was a really nice thing. She went with at least one of her friends who also became a pharmacist.
Do you know why she wanted to become a pharmacist?
Well, she wanted something in medicine, and I guess instead of being a medical technologist, she decided on pharmacy. And you can make really nice money as a pharmacist. So it was a 5-year program. Now it's a 6-year program, and you have to get your doctor of pharmacy. You can't even do 5 years anymore. You have to do 6. But she liked URI. She had a good time there, and she always had her eye on Mitch. Mm-hmm. And she, at one point, Mitch went out to California where Ricky was, and she supposedly went out to see Ricky, but she really went out to see Mitch. Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize that they were having, a thing together. But, the parents are the last to know.
So they kept it secret?
Well, not really that secret, but she went there.
And they just weren't advertising it?
Well, actually, Mark and Ricky were very happy that Patty wanted to be with Mitch because we really love Mitch. And so they lived together for a year before they finally decided to get married. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that Mark and Ricky worked on Mitch, saying what a good deal it is. And it turned out that Mitch has had a very good life with his wife. I think they're married for 29 years now. Mm-hmm. And they made their own wedding. They had a wedding up in New Jersey. I mean, Bill and I helped, but they got married on a Thursday because it was cheaper to get married on Thursday than Saturday. But they had it in a very nice catering place, and it was a beautiful wedding. I don't remember what we did about the photography, but we must have had it. Maybe Patty has the album.
So did this take place before or after you moved to Florida?
After. After. Because Patty came down to Florida. She was still, when I came to Florida, Patty was only in her 2nd year at Rhode Island. But she wasn't home anymore, so it was time to sell the house and move down. And we decided that we had enough of the business, because I was in the bridal business and Bill had the tuxedos. But we didn't want it to become a mom and pop store, which is what it would have become had we stayed, because the tuxedo business was going downhill. I mean, in its heyday, it was wonderful for us because we had a good life with it. We had a lot of money going on. We went on a lot of trips. Bill and I went to Greece. We went to Europe. We had a lot of good times. We played a lot of golf. At one point, we belonged to a country club when the business was doing really well. We were in the country club for a couple of years, but when things started to go sour, we dropped out of the country club because it was expensive. Mm-hmm. And the country club was Shaka Maxim, which is really next door to where Patty lives right now. And it's a very expensive thing to do, to be a member of a country club. And we enjoyed it for a couple of years. I mean, Ricky and Mark enjoyed it a lot because we had some really nice dinners there, seafood dinners, and, you know, sort of like River Wilderness, but fancier. Sort of like where you got married.
Lakewood Ranch.
Yeah, it was more like Lakewood Ranch. It was a very nice place. So we had that for a couple of years, and I enjoyed it. I played bridge with the ladies, and I belonged to the ladies group, and I won a tournament, and it was fun. And Bill had, you know, we had so many different places then. Bill was able to take time off and play golf and enjoy himself too. But, you know, nothing lasts forever, and when our business started to go bad, it was time to do something else. And Bill had worked very hard for 25 years running that business. So his father sold the building. We ran the store, but his father owned the building. So he sold the building, and we all moved down together. Because at that point, Bill's mother had passed away, and my father-in-law was living by himself in a two-family house, and he couldn't take care of himself. He didn't know how to cook. He didn't know, that was not his thing. He liked being in the store. And when we decided that we were going to move down, we tried to sell our business to our manager of the store. And by the time we drove down, the three of us drove down, I forgot Joe DiDonato, that's his name, decided that he couldn't handle the business. It was too hard for him. His wife didn't want it. He'd rather just work for somebody. So we got down, and I started working, and Bill went back up north with his father to have a going out of business sale. So my father-in-law wasn't very good at that because his sister told him about this woman that he could meet up there. So he went up there and he married Florence. And this is a whole story in itself. While Bill's trying to have this going out of business sale, my father-in-law gets married to this woman. And he was going to bring her back to Florida. So he didn't like her clothes, so he's very magnanimous. He said, we'll get rid of all your clothes, we'll buy you a whole new wardrobe. Well, it turned out she didn't really want to do anything but stay in bed. And so my father-in-law said, you know, if you're not going to come and meet Cousin Faye, who I showed you her picture, he said, I'm going to leave you. So he did. He packed this suitcase. I mean, they were only married about a week. He moved in with my friend, Barbara, the one that passed away. I showed you her picture. He stayed with her to hide out because Franks was looking for him. I'm down here in Florida. Bill's trying to have this going out of business sale, and my father-in-law's hiding out. So Florence kept calling us and said, where is Max? Where's Max? I said, I don't know where Max is. I wasn't going to tell him that he was hiding out at Barbara's house. So we had the lawyer get an annulment. But it cost him a nice few $1,000s because, and her family was very upset. They hated to get her back again because she was a bit of a kook. So anyway, they had the going out of business sale, and Max and Bill came back to Florida. In the meantime, there's another woman that's interested in my father-in-law. He was quite a catch. So that was Betty. Yeah. Now, he knew Betty from before because Bill's cousin in Rhode Island she was married to Betty's son. They got divorced, but Betty knew Max, and she saw a good thing, so she came down to Florida to find him. So she moved in with Max, and they got married. After he got the annulment from Florence, he married Betty, and Betty had nice furniture and everything, and she brought it into the apartment. See, at first, Max stayed with his sister in North Miami Beach, and he bought a furnished apartment in the same development, a one-bedroom apartment. But he didn't know how to take care of himself. So when Betty came down, she had all this nice furniture, and she moved in, and they had a good life together. I mean, he had somebody to take care of him. It's not that Betty was a great cook, but she was a woman who enjoyed life. They went on trips together. They went to Israel. They came out to California with us. He had another 15 years with Betty before he passed away. So he was 75 or 78 because he was 93 by the time he died. So he left Betty the apartment because that's the least he could do. And we liked Betty because she took good care of my father-in-law. And he was a very nice man. I'm just sorry you never really got to know him.
So Grandpa Max decided to move to Miami, and you decided to move to Bradenton.
He wouldn't like being here. He was very Jewish, and he wanted to be with his own kind of people. And his sister was living there, and they have all those Jewish foods there, and you know, the kind of thing that he would be happy with. So of course, it was hard on Bill when Max got sick because we're living here and Max is in North Miami Beach, and Betty would call us in the middle of the night and say, "Your father fell," you know, and then they would take him to the hospital and Bill would run over there. When they first were there, we used to go like once a month. In fact, when we first came down, we made up that we would go there. But, you know, I had a job and they wouldn't always give me off when I wanted to go. But we worked it out. But, you know, we wanted to enjoy our life here. And we played golf and we played tennis. And, you know, really had a good time here. So,
and you wanted to move here because my dad was living here at the time.
Right. Well, we first came here when Mark graduated from law school, and his first job was in Bradenton in the prosecutor's office. So we came down when he graduated, and then we came over here to see where he was going to be working because he got a job right away.
Right.
And I said, gee, I like this part of Florida. I didn't like the East Coast. See, Bill liked going to Boca Raton because that's where Cousin David lives. But to me, Boca Raton is like living in New York. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a different atmosphere. I mean, I like what we have here. And especially when we found the island. We didn't first find the island. Mark found us an apartment when we first came down, just for 6 months in Sarasota. So we were living in a condo for 6 months in Sarasota, and we rented the furniture, which is a whole other story. When we were coming down, it took us 3 days to come down because I'm such a slowpoke. We came in 3 cars. We had the station wagon and another car, and my father-in-law had his car. So I was the one in the middle, and whenever I would flash my lights when I got tired, you know, we would pull into the next, not motel, but
rest area.
And as I said, it took us 3 days to come down because of me. But Max didn't want to stay here, no matter what. So we were planning on renting furniture because when we came down, I didn't have any furniture. We just had a small U-Haul where I had that table. That table was there. And then we had a couple of other things. And mostly what it was a small thing because I took all of my linens and my dishes and stuff that was important to me. Mm-hmm. But we didn't really need the furniture. And so when we were on our way, we stopped in Tampa to go to this rental place to get the furniture for the apartment. I needed a bedroom set and a living room set for the apartment. So Max was supposed to follow us. Well, he followed the wrong car, and he went up on the highway, and we lost him. And there we were trying to rent the furniture. We only rented the furniture for 6 months. But we called up Mark at the prosecutor's office, and I said, alert the police. Max doesn't know where to go. He only knows to go to Sarasota. Well, he was on the highway. He never thought to ask anybody, even when he stopped to pay the tolls. He just kept driving. Well, he got to downtown Bradenton right at the traffic light, and Mark was getting out of the courthouse to go to where we were going to go in Sarasota. And there he sees Max at the traffic light. So he's knocking on the window and saying, Grandpa, Grandpa! So then the two of them drove down to where he rented the apartment. It was on Beneva and
Proctor?
Well, around Bee Ridge and Beneva. It was, I forget the name of the condo, but we were there for 6 months. So when we got there, there's Max and Mark, and they said, "What took you so long?" So my father-in-law, I'm really sorry you never got to know him, because he was a man who enjoyed life. He always had a joke on his hands, and he loved my children to pieces. But anyway, we didn't stay here. We went right to we moved into the apartment, but we took my father-in-law. He stayed with his sister in this, forget the name of the development, but she had a 2-bedroom apartment. So until he bought his own apartment, he stayed with his sister. And then he bought this 1-bedroom, which was right in the same development. And he was very happy to be there.
Yeah. See,
because he left his 2-family house. He hadn't really sold it yet, or they hadn't had the closing on it. And his brother was supposed to take care of it, but he didn't. And the water froze, and he had a problem with it. But anyway, he did sell it, and he sold the building. But he had another 15 years living in Florida, enjoying life, and I was happy for him. And Betty had the 1-bedroom apartment, and she stayed there till she died. So I think that pretty much catches us up. But Patty, her 3rd and 4th year at Rhode Island, came down every summer and worked at Lake Hospital. You know, you have to do a certain amount of interning, and so they even paid her. But of course she lived in that room, and she had another roommate. Her friend's name was Tammy, and Tammy got a job too in Florida. But Patty didn't want to stay in Florida. She said it's too hot here. I mean, Mitch would have stayed here because he went to school in Tampa for a while. Yeah. And Mitch liked Florida because he could play golf. In fact, he taught Patty to play golf, and she was very good. The first time she went out, she parred a hole. I mean, she's very strong and she's very athletic. She was on the tennis team in high school, and she was a very good swimmer. I mean, she was always very athletic. But she was always interested in tennis, and that's how come she got her kids involved in the tennis. And it certainly paid for Ryan, because he got into Lehigh on the tennis.
So, in all your travels with Papa, you have any good stories?
I just told you a few of them.
Well, let's hear another.
Those were the best.
No, I mean when you were actually traveling.
Oh.
Out of the country.
Oh, we didn't travel with him.
No, with Papa.
Oh, you mean my husband?
My Papa.
Your Papa. One of the first, I insisted that we travel while we were working, because I know for a fact that when people retire, a lot of times they die after they retire. And I just wanted to be able to enjoy my life. And that was part of why we came down to Florida. But even when we were living in New Jersey, we still went on trips. One trip, we had a travel agent down the street. You know, Bill was very highly respected by all of the people who owned businesses on Elizabeth Avenue. And so we did a lot of business, a lot of family things right on the avenue, because we had a business, and so we would go to Coker's for the toys, we'd go to the dress shop for dresses, whatever it was, we did it right there. And there was a travel agent there, and one of the first trips that we went, and I have a whole album on it, where we went, I was wearing a walking suit. I had the thing, I wore that walking suit for the whole trip. We went to Paris, then we went to Venice, we went to Leaning Tower of Pisa, we went to Florence and Rome, all on one trip. And we were able to fly from one place to another. Things were different in those days, and we could arrange that. And it was really wonderful. In Paris, we stayed in near the Eiffel Tower, the Arch de Triomphe. So it was pretty good, and we could use the underground to go all over Paris, and that was wonderful. But then we also went to Venice, and when we got to Venice, it was at night. And I made a deal with them that if we stayed for a certain length of time, they would give us everything combined. So they had 2 meals a day in the hotel, and it was just beautiful. We were right on the canal, and it was just a beautiful time. Then we went to Florence, and I don't remember where we stayed in Florence. And then we went to Rome, and then we flew home from Rome. That was one trip. Then another trip, we went to Mexico. We stayed for a week in this place called San Miguel de Allende. It was an artist colony. And I think we paid $600 for the week, and that included 2 meals a day and the accommodations. This friend of mine who's an artist told me about this place, and the food was great. The Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica, and they had Encyclopedia Britannicas down in the San Miguel, and so Bill and I went to meet the guy, but he was doing it in Spanish, of course.
Right.
So it was very interesting.
Yeah.
And then we went on another trip that we went to Greece, and that's where I did all those paintings. I had a backpack, and I did 10 paintings of the Greek islands. We went to Santorini, Mykonos, of course, Athens.
Did you go
Crete.
to Crete?
Yeah. We had a whole day tour of Crete. That was really interesting.
Did you go to the ruined palace? Knossos, it's called?
I don't think so.
It's one of the oldest settlements
Maybe
in
we
the
did.
Western.
What I remember about Athens is they have this section called the Plaka, and that's where all the shops are. And I had bought some mats that said Greece, I think I used them in the bathrooms. They were really nice. But you had to be careful when you went to Greece because they could really rip you off.
Right.
And when we were at the placa, I had known to look at what the table d'hote was, so I made sure that we didn't pay anything more than what was said. You know, and I mostly wanted the Greek salad. The food in Greece is very good.
So one last question. Where did you get the name Oma? How did you choose it?
Our very good friends, Hans and Ina, they're Dutch, and she was called Oma. And I thought that was a really neat thing. It's old grandma, old mother. So that's how we decided that I would be Oma.
And Papa, that was what?
Why not Papa?
Yeah, why not? Good. Is there more time?
There's more time, but I started it again.
Oh, you started again.
So it's like overheating.
Alright.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Should I just stop?
because it only lasts about a half hour.
Yeah.
Well, we went for another trip to Yellowstone, and I loved Yellowstone. We were there for a week, and what other trip? Oh, and of course our 50th anniversary. We flew to France and went on a riverboat, and it was up the Seine and down the Loire. And there were only 100 people on the boat, so it was lovely. You know, every day you stop at a different place.
Right.
And it was just fantastic. It was a wonderful way to have a 50th anniversary. And that was our last big trip.
So do you you've been to Europe a lot. How do you like it compared to these?
I haven't stopped.
Oh, you haven't stopped it?
Well, we never went to China or Australia.
Right. Is it still going?
Yeah.
And I only got to places in Europe that I was interested in because I'm mostly interested in the art. I loved England. I would have loved to have gone to Scotland and Wales, but we never did. And I was never particularly interested to go to Alaska. But I did enjoy England very much. That was another whole trip. In fact, we went with 2 other sets of friends. It was Bobby and Bert and Wally and Harriet, the 3 couples. In fact, we went to one of the fancy department stores and got a meal to eat on the plane, but we were so cramped up, it didn't really work out. The idea was good, but it didn't. I had been working with this man in Lake Hospital, and he told us where to stay in London, and we stayed in a bed and breakfast, and it was down the street from the Victoria Station, and it was ideal because wherever we wanted to go, we'd go down to the station and go from there. And at one point we took a train and went to Bath. I always wanted to see, not Bath, Brighton. But the train stopped at Bath too. But Brighton was, where they always have the old movies.
Right.
Yeah. So that was an enjoyable day. And we also went to Stonehenge when we were in
How did you like that?
Oh, fantastic. I understand that now they won't let you near it.
No.
No.
Guess they're afraid to knock it over.
Well, it's getting very fragile.
How big were the stones compared to?
Very big.
Yeah. So as big as this room? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's really a worthwhile thing. I enjoyed every one of the trips, and I was lucky that I never got sick. I mean, you hear so many people. I was talking to my friend who just came back from Italy, and he and his wife, well, they're 65 now, and I guess they were trying to walk all over and they got tired, and he has problems with emphysema. And so, you really have to travel when you're young, because if you wait till you're older, you can't do all that stuff. I can't do it today. When that first trip when we went to Paris, we walked all over. I mean, that was when I was wearing that walking suit, and we walked all day long, and ate off the street. We'd have French onion soup. I mean, there's just so many wonderful things. In fact, we were pretty stupid when we first went, because I'm used to eating like at 5 or 6 o'clock. Well, not in Paris. They don't eat till like 9, 10 o'clock at night, and that's too late. I can't eat that late. But they laughed at us because we went out at 5 o'clock looking for a place to have dinner. But the kids today, they eat so late. Patty eats at 9 o'clock at night. I think it's crazy. She eats dinner and then she goes to bed. It's not healthy.
No.
Yeah. I don't have any regrets for all the trips that we took.
Good.
And I was the one who pushed it all the time. Because, we have the store, and it's like, who's going to be in the store if we're not there,
Right, yeah.
Of course.
So what was your favorite trip of all?
I don't know. That's very hard to say. I guess that Greek trip. I really enjoyed the Greek islands. You can't see it all, but you see as much as you can.
Yeah,
that's true.
And we did stay in a bed and breakfast in every one of the places on the Greek. And Santorini was absolutely the most magnificent place in the world. That's the pictures I have up there.
Yes.
over there, I think.
Well, I think the picture of Santorini is this one over here. Because every day I painted. And we were staying in one of these. I'm going to turn the light on. See, we were in Mykonos, and this was Hagia Sophia or something like that. It's near Crete.
Mm-hmm.
And this one?
I think that was, I can't remember. One of the islands.
Yay!
What's your favorite painting that you've done?
Oh, I don't know. That's very hard.
The
The one painting that I have here that I really like, I did this when I was still living in New Jersey. It's the oil painting. I did that with a palette knife. I won some awards. I had been in some sidewalk shows in New Jersey, and I won the first as an amateur.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me a pen. I have it someplace. If I can find it. Here it is.
Very cool.
In fact, Doris was with me. She was in the show too. And these are my cookbooks. But Bill had a lot of different books. But he loved books so much, he was selling Encyclopedia Britannica. That was one of the things that he did down here.
Mm-hmm.
Before he became a psychologist and worked in what do they call it? The mental health, I forgot the name of it.
Lake? Is it near Lake?
No, it's part of Manatee Hospital.
Mm. I don't know.
So these are
No, I know who this one is. That's Jeffrey.
Jeffrey or Greg? That's Greg. That can't be Jeffrey.
No, that's me.
Oh, that's great.
Because here's
Jason.
and Greg and Jason are pretty close in age.
That's right. Jeffrey's the oldest one, isn't he?
Right.
Oh, that's you.
Now, who's this one?
Ryan?
Maybe it's Ryan. Yeah, it must have been Ryan. Why else would I have had a picture of him? Yeah.
He's so Patty.
Yeah. And Ryan. And Ryan again. And Ryan again. And this must have been his school. That must be. Maybe that's Jason.
Jason? No, it looks like Ryan. Because Ryan has a thinner face.
Oh, okay.
And Jason has a little bit whiter. Just a little bit.
This is their house on Scotch Plains.
Do they still live there?
Not in that house. They got a bigger house
They
now.
got a bigger house.
Yeah. Now here's the family. This is cousin Rosalind. And this is Bernie. Rhonda and Bernie are first cousins to Bill.
Oh.
And this is Patty and Ryan and me and Rosalind.
I think here's Uncle Ricky.
Yeah.
This must be Jason.
Yeah.
And that's an old car.
This is our house on Battle Hill Terrace.
This is the one in Battle Hill. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a cute house. Did you only live on the bottom floor or on the top?
Oh, no, it's one family house. It was a living
So
room
this
down-
was already one
Yeah.
family house.
Yeah.
Oh.
Lehigh Avenue was the two-family house. See, here's Doris, I guess, at a
The
school
painting.
thing. It's not something she did. It's probably her kids.
Oh.
And that's Bill. And here's the two of them, Ryan and Jason. And that must be Jason. Yeah, I think that's Jason. And that's
Yeah.
Bill.
So when the kids were born, were you still living in
Which kids? These kids?
Ryan? No. Well, when Jeffrey was born, were you here already?
Yes.
Oh, so
Yes.
then you were
Yes.
already here and you went over to visit.
I saw Jeffrey from the moment he was born
Yeah.
at Manatee Memorial.
Ah, so you were
Yeah.
already living here.
Yeah.
So that must be Jeff with blue sunscreen on.
Yeah.
Or something. What a cutie pie.
Yeah.
And that's cousin Rosalind and Bernie. Now, this is the house that Bill lived in on Eaton Street, where my in-laws lived. They lived on the second floor. Now,
Did you ever live here?
When I was pregnant with the twins and we didn't have the apartment on Lehigh Avenue yet, I spent a couple of months with my mother-in-law until we got the apartment. But then when I had them, I was already in the apartment on Lehigh Avenue. This must have been our,
Lenny's Pizza.
this must be much later on.
This must have been the building where you had
Yeah.
the tuxedo
Yeah,
business?
on the second floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this used to be a shoe store. But then we took over the whole thing at one point.
Wow.
I haven't looked at these pictures in so long.
Oh,
This is the turtle thing. I was able to let the turtles go.
wait, you had little turtles?
The turtle watch on Anna Maria Island.
Yes.
And so we were part of it. And we found the nest and they let us, they let me empty the thing to have the turtle release.
Oh,
That was a thrill.
so cute.
There's Patty and Mitch. I guess they were,
Prom? No?
I guess,
Dance? Maybe?
must have been a dance or something. You still look like that.
I think so.
I had more hair.
Look how young Mark was. Now, who's in there? Oh, Patty and Ryan. This is Ellie. That's Jack's wife.
You said Mark? That looks, wow. That looks like Mark.
I don't even know who that is. Yeah, that must have been Mark.
Yeah, this is Miss Chris.
And who's this?
Cousin? Maybe their kid?
Maybe. Here's Jack. I didn't even know I had a picture of Jack.
Yeah. There's Jack.
That's me, Bill. And this, I guess, is Greg.
Yep.
Greg.
Who's that?
I think it's
That's Greg?
Yeah. Yeah, this must be Greg.
These are all...
Jeffrey was very, very blonde.
Yes.
And he was light blonde.
Yeah. This must have been your birthday.
Oh.
Must
and he
have
had McDonald's.
Yeah, we used to have
What'd you
our...
have?
McDonald's.
We used to
hates
have
it
birthday
now.
parties at McDonald's.
McDonald's used to be a really fun place to go when I was a kid. We loved it.
I guess this is Chris.
We also love Burger King too, because they have the king hats.
Okay, this is Jason.
There's Ryan.
Yeah. Who's that?
Jason, maybe? Ryan?
Maybe Jason.
It
Here's
must have been one
Ryan.
of the two of them.
Yeah. So this one was Jason.
Yeah.
Oh,
So they had a cow.
Is it a petting zoo? Is that what it is?
Maybe
Probably. Barney! So cute.
And there they are riding the horses.
Uncle Ricky. Does he still have a beard? He doesn't have a beard now. A
I
mustache?
don't think so.
Yeah, no.
Is this me?
I think so, Oma. Yeah, that's you and that's Aunt Patty.
Must have been some kind of
Yeah,
3D.
because there I am again. And there's Mitch with the crazy glasses. There's Statue of Liberty, the Twin Towers. And I guess they went on a, you think that was your father's
Boat?
car?
Oh yeah, that was our boat and that was the Suburban.
Yeah. And here they are playing ball. That's Jeffrey and Greg.
No, this is somebody else.
Oh, I think that's Greg.
Yeah,
And that's Jeffrey.
actually, I think they're both Jeffrey.
Yeah.
He looks very blonde too.
Yeah, I never played Little League, so that was
Okay,
Jeff.
you're right there.
Yeah, but I wasn't playing, see.
There's Mark with the camera. And you're sitting on your mother's lap.
Look at that face you're making. It's like, I don't want to be here. I want to be over there. There's
the two of you and a neighbor's kid.
Probably.
And this is Jean and myself.
Oh.
And there's Max and Chris.
Good.
And
Good.
you were a Boy Scout?
No, that was Jeff.
Oh.
Jeff's hair was darkening.
Oh. But you never were a Boy Scout?
Nope. And he wasn't either. He was actually a Cub Scout.
A Cub Scout. Yeah, well, that's what I was, a Cub den mother.
There you are, and there's Jeff.
Yeah.
So Jeff with the cub, and there you are, Oma.
Oh, so that must have been me. Yeah. Because I was wearing the purple, and then I guess I just put on one of the sashes. And he had the uniform.
I guess we took a bunch of pictures that day.
That's so cute.
I don't even remember it. These were my very good friends. Bert's still alive, but Bobby died last year. She was the same age as I am. She and I graduated high school together. And Bert was Bill's very good friend. And now he has Parkinson's so bad. He was at the funeral when we had it in New Jersey.
Yeah.
In fact, Bobby made a speech that day. Yeah, it looks like we were playing miniature golf. And there's Patty with the kids in front of my apartment. Is this Mark?
I think
Yeah.
so.
And there's Greg. And that's Jeffrey's birthday.
Yep.
And there they are swimming.
Yeah, this must have been Jeff's birthday.
This is here at Battle Hill, at West Bay Cove.
Oh, at the pool.
Yeah,
This must have also been the bake-off then.
maybe so.
Yeah.
I guess they were playing miniature golf. We used to do that. Remember the miniature golf?
Yeah.
And there's Bill and I,
It's
and
Christmas.
Mark and Chris. And there's Jack and Ellie. And this is her friend Rusty, who she
Right.
played, she went
Line dancing.
dancing with. Now here's Bob and Alice. I met Alice painting, and then they came here when both of them were without their mates, and they fell in love, and they've been together for 20 years now.
Oh yeah, I also met her. She has oxygen thing now.
Yeah. And there's Alice with her sister. And this is her son and his wife,
No.
and
Jeffrey.
that's Jeffrey. And there's Jack. I didn't realize we'd had pictures of Jack. So this must have been you, Greg,
Must have been.
That's Jeff.
because there's Jean. And here's Randy. This is the sister that she adored so much. She'd gone to Stetson College. She became a lawyer.
Yeah.
And there's Ellie and Chris.
You know, both of them look a lot like Grandma Jane.
Yeah.
They do have a little Grandpa Jack, but they both look very similar.
Isn't he a cutie?
Aww.
If you have a little boy, he's going to look like that.
I think you have some brownies on you. Just kidding.
And that's Jason. And that must be Bill.
Mm-hmm. What is it with the headphones? They were just a toy you were playing with? Oh, they had a duck.
I guess so. We must have been at a place that had. Now, who's this? It's me.
No, that's
That must be. Oh, these are our next door neighbors, Teddy and Lori.
Teddy.
And Lori has a little boy, but now Lori's. She's still a good friend of Patty's. And these two have been friends since childhood. It's the best thing that ever happened that Patty married Mitch.
Yeah.
Ricky used to love cats.
Used to?
Well, he doesn't have any cats anymore, but he did.
Oh. Lori, Larry, Ben, Alex, and Rachel.
These are Lori's 3 children.
Oh. So this
Ben,
is Ben,
Alex, Rachel, and Alex.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess that's Mitch.
No.
You don't think so?
This one's Mark.
Yeah.
That's Jeff. That's Greg. That looks like Ron. I don't know. Doesn't look like Uncle Mitch though, because he had dark hair. Like dark hair.
I don't know who that is. It's a friend. This must have been one of the shows that I was in, Florida Suncoast. And there's Bob and Alice, myself. And these are my neighbors. They were called Kathy and Jim Palmer. They're both dead now, but they were great golfers. They lived at West Bay Cove. There I am working in the lab.
So what did you do in the lab?
I was a medical technologist. I did the hematology, the blood bank, the chemistries. I did everything.
Now they have a person for everything.
Yeah.
So the hematologist does the count of the
Right.
blood.
But the last few years, I just did hematology. When I worked for,
Hematology.
yeah. That's me. I'm not really sure who these people were. Oh, I worked with them. This was, Blake had a Christmas party at Michael's.
Oh, I see. So this is a party.
Yeah. This was working in the lab. Well, Jeff even had his arm around you.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Greg has a gun, so maybe he felt. Maybe he felt safe.
This is Grace.
Grace.
Grace is Ricky's wife.
Oh, this is the third one, right?
Yeah.
The one they're married.
And
right
this is a niece, Rachel. And there's Jean. And that's the end of that album.
So very cute.
We saw that album already.
This one is. It says Camp May, East Coast. That's what it says. Cape May.
Oh, Kate May.
I thought it said Camp.
Oh. Well, I think this was all of our travels. We had the trailer. We went to different places.
Is it that trailer that Grandpa Jack has now?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So where was this?
Just traveling in different places. This is part of Florida. They look like
There's stuff.
houses. I'm not sure whether they were in
Yeah.
Westfield or not.
They're very pretty houses.
Yeah, they could have been.
Floor. Maybe you were house shopping?
No, we were traveling. I think these were all our travels. I don't think there's any of the family in here. These were pictures that I took.
While you were traveling? Did you paint? Did you get to paint while you were traveling?
Yeah, I did a lot of lighthouses.
What was your favorite place to travel to?
Greece. That's what all these, that's one from Greece, that one's from
You get
Greece.
some outside too.
Yeah, that one's from the east coast of Florida. I forget the name of that area.
St. Augustine?
Yes. And this one was local. That was on the island. We did have a place like that. But I like to do lighthouses. And this must have been Cape May.
It's pretty.
That's when we were with the trailer. I should have taken pictures of the trailer. Because there's no people in these. These are just pictures for me to remember these lovely places in Cape May.
It's nice. It's very historical.
Yes.
They don't make houses like this anymore.
No.
Not at all.
Well,
So where is Cape May?
Houses are really
Cape
pretty.
May, New Jersey, the most southern part of New Jersey.
Ah,
It's really nice there.
Very beautiful.
I spent a few days there with the trailer. Too bad I didn't take the trailer. Just pictures of the houses.
Of the area.
There I was painting. This must have been Greece.
Oh. Is this guy Greek too?
Could be.
Dressed in funny clothes.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. Oh, look at
Because,
that.
yeah, this was in Greece.